What would you do if the one person you trusted with your soul was the same person who calmly sliced it apart? The night everything broke was a Tuesday. I was staring at her phone, the screen glowing at 2 a.m. in our dark Chicago bedroom on North Clark Street. It wasn't a single message that did it. It was a thread, a novel of their affair, complete with pictures I'd never be able to unsee. My wife Jessica was sleeping peacefully beside me, her breathing even, completely unaware that her entire world was about to be systematically dismantled. She thought she was untouchable, but she had no idea what I was capable of becoming. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel, tell us where you're from, and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. Our life was supposed to be a masterpiece. 10 years married, a beautiful brownstone in Lincoln Park, the kind of life people put on vision boards. I owned a small but successful architectural firm, and she was a rising star in corporate law. We were a power couple, or so I thought. The first crack appeared subtly. It was a shift in her energy, a new coolness in her eyes. She started working late client dinners that stretched into the early morning. When I'd call, she'd sound breathless, distant. "Just wrapping up, babe," she'd say, the sound of traffic or a closing car door in the background. Then came the receipts. A dinner for two at Alinea on a night she was supposedly at a conference in Miami. A hotel bill from the peninsula, a place we'd only ever dreamed of staying, for a room with a king bed. I found it tucked into the pocket of a coat she hadn't worn in weeks. It felt like a deliberate act of cruelty, a breadcrumb trail left by a monster. The man's name was Mark, a senior partner at her firm. I saw him once at a company gala, smug and draped in a suit that cost more than my car. He had this predatory stillness, and he looked at Jessica not like a colleague, but like a prize he'd already won. She became a stranger in our home. Her laughter, once the soundtrack of my life, was now reserved for hushed phone calls she'd take on the balcony. She'd angle her body away from me, her voice a low murmur. The manipulation was the worst part. She'd gaslight me, making me feel insane for questioning her. "You're being so insecure," she'd sneer, her eyes cold and flat. "Is your firm not doing well? Are you trying to project your failures onto me?" They felt untouchable, wrapped in their arrogance and the bubble of their shared deceit. One night I followed them. I watched from across the street as she met him at a dimly lit bar on Rush Street. I saw the way he touched the small of her back, the way she leaned into him, a gesture so intimate it felt like a physical blow. They laughed, and I saw the real her, the version she saved for him. I sat in my car for 3 hours, the engine off, the Chicago cold seeping into my bones. That was the night the man she married died. I went home, poured a glass of whiskey, and felt the last of my love curdle into something cold, hard, and patient. The breakdown was silent. It wasn't a storm. It was the freezing of a lake, solid and deep. The next morning, I woke up, and the grief was gone. In its place was a chilling clarity. Revenge wouldn't be an emotional outburst. It would be a project. It's an architectural design of ruin. I started gathering proof. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled ex-cop who specialized in marital infidelity. He was worth every penny. He gave me photos, crystal clear images of them checking into the Waldorf Astoria, kissing in a parking garage, holding hands at a cafe. I installed a keylogger on her laptop. I read every email, every chat. They were planning a future, discussing when she would leave me, how she would take me for everything I had. "He's too sentimental to fight," she wrote to Mark. "He'll roll over. We'll have the house and half his business by Christmas." That was her fatal mistake. She mistook my love for weakness. I opened a new bank account and began quietly moving assets. I consulted with the most ruthless divorce attorney in Chicago, a woman known as the Shark. We set the traps. We filed for divorce first, citing infidelity, and attached a mountain of evidence that was impossible to dispute. We timed the filing to coincide with her firm's annual ethics review. I sent an anonymous, carefully worded package to the managing partners and the firm's HR department. It contained select photos and printouts of their emails, highlighting the use of company resources for their affair and their plans to defraud me. The public exposure was brutal and swift. Mark was fired immediately for violating the firm's code of conduct. Jessica was suspended pending an investigation, her career shattered. The social fallout was just as devastating. I forwarded the evidence to our entire circle of friends, The same people she had lied to for months. Her phone blew up, not with messages of support, but with disgust and condemnation. She was a pariah. The day we met in the courtroom for the final hearing was the first time I'd seen her since it all went down. She looked broken, her expensive clothes hanging off her thinning frame. Mark was nowhere to be seen. He had abandoned her the second the scandal broke, leaving her to face the consequences alone. The judge, looking at the evidence, was not sympathetic. The infidelity clause in our prenup was ironclad. She left with nothing. Not the house, not a dime for my business, only her personal belongings and a mountain of legal debt. A few weeks later, she showed up at my door. It was raining, the water plastering her hair to her face. She was crying, the arrogant mask completely gone, replaced by raw desperation. "I made a mistake," she sobbed. "He left me. He's with someone else. Please, can I come home?" I just looked at her, this ghost of the woman I once loved, and felt nothing. No anger, no pity, just a vast, quiet emptiness. I didn't say a word. I just slowly and deliberately closed the door in her face, the click of the lock echoing in the empty hallway. I stood there for a long time, listening to the sound of her weeping fade into the rain. The house was clean now. The end.